Are you kidding me right now? That was the only thing running through my head as I stood waist-deep in my own damn lake, a flashlight beam slicing across the water, followed by a shrill voice yelling, "Get out now! The police are on their way!" I'd barely been swimming 10 minutes. No music, no party, no crowd. Just me, the water, and the morning fog. And yet here I was, a grown man dripping wet, being screamed at like some teenager sneaking into a public pool after dark. If you've ever dealt with an HOA Karen, you already know how this story starts. But trust me, you haven't heard one like this. Because this time, she picked the wrong lake, the wrong man, and, God help her, the wrong family. Before we go further, hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to deal with someone like this. Because what you're about to hear, it's justice served cold, wet, and legal. The day had started perfectly. Cool air, glassy water, the kind of Tennessee sunrise that makes you forget the world's gone mad. I'd bought the land 3 months ago after retiring from 32 years in the Forestry Service. 52 acres, a small cabin, a dock, and best of all, a spring-fed lake that straddled the boundary between my parcel and a private residential community called Silver Pines. Their part of the shoreline was maybe 20 feet, enough to look nice in their brochures. Mine, I owned the rest. No one told them that. Or maybe they just didn't want to believe it. I dove under again, enjoying the silence, until headlights splashed across the far bank. Then came the voice, sharp, condescending, unmistakably entitled. "You there! You're not supposed to be here." I stood, water to my ribs. A woman in her 60s stood at the top of the hill on the HOA side, holding a phone out like a weapon, filming. Blonde helmet hair, pastel windbreaker, sandals with socks. A walking stereotype. I knew who she was before she opened her mouth again. "I've already called 911. You're trespassing on Silver Pines community property. This lake is private." "I own this land," I said calmly, gesturing behind me. "You're looking at my dock." Her lips tightened. "That's impossible. This entire lake is under HOA jurisdiction. We've had problems with squatters before." That word, squatters, hit like a slap. I took a step closer to shore. "Ma'am, I'm John Mayer. I purchased this property in full. You can check with the county." But she was already pacing, barking into her phone. "Yes, he's still here. Older white male, graying beard, maybe homeless, acting aggressive. Yes, I'm safe for now, but please hurry." Within minutes, red and blue lights broke the mist. A sheriff's SUV pulled up. 2 deputies stepped out, hands resting near their belts. "Sir," the younger one said cautiously, "we received a report of trespassing on private HOA property." I walked slowly to the bank, water dripping off my swim trunks. "I own this land. My dock starts right there. Would you like to see my deed?" Before he could answer, the woman charged down the hill. "Don't listen to him. He's lying. He's been here before. He harasses residents. Last week I saw him walking near the trailhead." "I was checking the fence line," I said, raising my voice just enough. "I've got survey stakes to prove it, and I've never spoken to a single resident until you started shouting at me." The older deputy, tall, thin, and clearly the senior, pulled me aside. "You said your name's John Mayer?" "Yes, sir." He radioed something back to dispatch. A pause, then static. Then, confirmed. "Property transfer filed under John Mayer. Parcel includes full eastern shoreline. He's not trespassing." The look on her face was worth every mosquito bite I'd gotten building that dock. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "There must be a mistake," she stammered. "Silver Pines has always had jurisdiction over this lake. It's been in the community charter since the 90s. The older deputy turned to her. "Ma'am, I suggest you take it up with your HOA board. This man is within his rights." But she wasn't done. She pointed at me like I was the devil himself. "I want him cited for indecency. He was swimming, in full view of our houses." "In swim trunks," I clarified. "At dawn, on my land." "You don't understand who I am," she hissed. I'm vice chair of the HOA Compliance Committee. The deputy nodded slowly. And I'm Officer Randall. You'll need to leave the property now, ma'am. She stepped back like she'd been slapped. I will not. I demand. Then a third vehicle pulled up, another sheriff's SUV, and out stepped my son, Deputy Commander Chris Mayer. He saw me, then saw her, and when he put it together, his eyes narrowed just slightly. He looked at Officer Randall. What's going on here? This gentleman was reported for trespassing. Turns out he owns the land. Chris looked at me. I nodded once. Then he looked at her and smiled, but not kindly. Ma'am, he said evenly, walking toward her, I'm going to need you to step back and lower your voice. Her eyes lit up when she saw the new badge. She straightened, smoothed her jacket. Finally, someone who understands authority. Officer, this man is disturbing the peace and possibly exposing himself to families. That's my father. The words landed like a dropped brick. Her mouth stayed open, but now no sound came out. Chris crossed his arms. You called in a false report. You accused a decorated state officer and landowner of criminal behavior. You escalated a non-issue into a police response. And you tried to weaponize our department to enforce your personal bias. Her face turned a deep, uneven shade of red. I didn't know he was your father. That's irrelevant. Chris stepped in closer. No, what's relevant is that you assumed. You saw a man alone, not part of your gated club, and decided he didn't belong. You used law enforcement like a private security line. That ends now, she sputtered. But the HOA doesn't own this lake, Chris cut her off. And even if it did, you still don't get to call in lies and waste resources. He turned to the officers. File an incident report. Mark it as harassment and misuse of emergency services. Let's get a statement from Dad. Then I want body cam footage uploaded within the hour. The wind left her completely. She blinked like she was waking up in a nightmare she didn't recognize. You can't do this, she whispered. I just did. She took a shaky step back. I'll file a formal complaint. This is a personal conflict of interest. Chris looked straight at her. Please do. Make it public. I'd love for the entire county to hear how Janice Hartman, vice chair of the Silver Pines HOA, called 911 on a homeowner for swimming in his own lake. She froze again. Name, badge, title, all said out loud. A neighbor or two had started to gather near the tree line. Phones were visible. Some were filming. Janice noticed. Her shoulders stiffened, but her eyes began darting. Not rage now. Panic. Go home, Chris said softly. This is over. Janice turned without a word, stormed back up the hill, nearly tripping over her own feet. Her sandals slapped the gravel. Her phone hung useless in her hand. When she was gone, Chris looked at me and exhaled. You okay? I nodded. I wasn't until you showed up. He smirked. She picked the wrong day to call 911. Officer Randall gave a quiet chuckle. Might be time for that HOA to get a reminder about where their authority ends. Chris patted me on the shoulder. Write up your statement later. Go enjoy your swim. I looked out across the water. The surface had settled again. Fog still floated low near the trees. For a moment, the world felt right again. But I knew Janice Hartman wasn't done, and I had a feeling this wasn't going to be her last call. She didn't wait long. The very next morning, a certified letter arrived, sealed with the Silver Pines HOA emblem and a string of legally meaningless but intimidating phrases. Formal notice. Cease and desist. Pending review by the HOA Legal Subcommittee. I opened it on the porch with my coffee still hot and my towel from the morning swim still damp over my shoulder. It was laughable. 4 pages accusing me of creating visual disturbance, public endangerment through unsupervised water use, and, my favorite, failing to coordinate recreational activity with the HOA's event calendar. I read it twice before letting out a long, slow whistle. Chris came by an hour later, still in uniform but with a smirk that said he already knew. They served you already, he asked, nodding toward the letter. Oh, they served something, I said, holding it out. Reads like they think they're a federal agency. Chris skimmed it, then chuckled. She's trying to set a paper trail. She wants you to react emotionally so she can spin it as aggression. She's playing bureaucrat, I muttered. Fine, let's play. I spent the afternoon walking the boundary lines of my land, snapping photos of every stake, every surveyed coordinate, every inch of brush between my shoreline and hers. Then I sent a copy of the deed, highlighted, notarized, recorded, to the HOA's main email address with a brief message. To whom it may concern, attached is the official county deed showing property ownership, including riparian access and recreational rights. Your letter was received and archived. Please do not contact me again unless it pertains to a genuine legal matter. Respectfully, John Mayer. Then I printed it out, walked it to their clubhouse, and hand-delivered it to the front desk. The woman at the reception desk, young, polite, clearly not in on Janice's drama, took the envelope with a small nod and said, "You're Mr. Mayer? We've been getting a lot of calls." "I'm sure you have," I said. "Let the board know they're one more letter away from a harassment complaint." That night, just past 8 p.m., I heard the unmistakable buzz of a drone. It hovered low near the trees, skimming the lake surface. I watched it from the dock, arms crossed. 2 minutes later, it turned and zipped back toward the HOA property line. She was escalating. But what Janice didn't know? She wasn't the only one with eyes in the sky. I'd installed my own wildlife cameras, infrared-enabled, motion-triggered, and most importantly, silent. By morning, I had footage of her walking the edge of her property in slippers and a bathrobe, pointing the drone's controller like a wand, muttering to herself and waving at the dark. Chris came by again that afternoon, off duty now, but his phone buzzed with another HOA complaint. Individual continues to engage in disruptive behavior near communal spaces. "She said you were yelling at her from the lake," Chris said, eyes raised, "at 6:30 in the morning." "I was swimming laps," I said. Didn't say a word. "She's documenting everything." "Let her." I showed him the drone footage. He whistled. "She knows she's being watched and still goes full Bond villain?" "I think she believes she is the law." Chris shook his head. "Then she's about to get a reminder." We started putting together a file. Every letter, every message, every 911 call, every patrol she requested. Chris flagged it for the sheriff's internal review board as potential misuse of county resources. I started logging timestamps and neighbor sightings. 2 of them, Tom from the East Lot and Regina from the Trailhead, offered to write statements. They'd been on the receiving end of Janice's power plays too. She fined Tom $150 for decorative rocks without board approval. Regina once got cited for unauthorized hammock placement. Janice wasn't just after me. She was after control. What she didn't see coming was that I'd learned patience the hard way, from years in the forest, watching storms roll in long before the thunder. And now I saw it. The clouds, the wind, the shift in pressure. The storm was coming. And this time, she'd be the one caught without cover. By the end of that week, the Silver Pines community group on Facebook was on fire. It started with a blurry photo someone posted. Janice, standing on the very edge of her lawn, holding up what looked like a yardstick against the lake. Caption, "Queen Janice measuring the water again. Should we be worried?" The comments exploded. "I swear she was out there at 5:30 a.m. Scared my dog. What's next? HOA, regulations on wave height? Someone needs to tell her we don't own the moonlight reflections either." Someone even posted a meme of her face photoshopped onto the Statue of Liberty, holding a clipboard instead of a torch. At first, Janice didn't respond, but then she showed up to the next HOA meeting with a printed packet, a 12-page manifesto titled, "Community Integrity in Times of Disorder." I know because Regina gave me a copy. "Guess who's listed by name in here?" she said, setting the packet on my kitchen counter. I didn't need to ask. Page 3, bolded, "Disruptive elements and external threats to property values." My name sat right there between paragraphs about unsanctioned activities on shared waters and non-compliant landscaping sightlines. She was trying to paint me as a threat to the whole neighborhood. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about the lake anymore. Janice Hartman was trying to turn a personal vendetta into a community-wide narrative. So I changed strategy. I went quiet. No more responses, no more pushback. I started wearing headphones when I swam, waved politely to anyone I saw near the shore, and stayed completely publicly calm. Let her talk. Let her spin. Because while she raged, I was building something stronger. Regina and Tom weren't the only ones tired of her reign. Over the next few days, I got quiet visits from 5 other residents. People who didn't want to go public yet, but had stories. Fines for fence heights, citations for paint shades, threats of liens over late trash bin removals. One man, Paul, told me she once threatened to call child services because his grandkids drew chalk on his driveway. All of it documented. And slowly, piece by piece, we built the file. It had a name now, the Hartman Report. I printed a cover sheet and everything. Meanwhile, Chris quietly checked with the county zoning office. Turns out Janice had submitted no fewer than 8 complaints in the past 6 months. All dismissed. He also found something else. She's been lobbying to get lake access rights amended, he said one night, handing me a scanned PDF. She wants to rezone your property line, claims it was filed incorrectly. She's trying to retroactively redraw the map. Yup, but the county clerk already denied it. Twice. I stared at the rejection letter, the red denied stamp across the top like a personal gift from the universe. She's desperate, I said, and desperate people get sloppy. The next morning I woke to find my dock had been flagged. Literally. Someone had duct taped 3 orange flags along the edge, the kind used for marking violations, and left a laminated sheet stapled to one of the posts. Unauthorized structure under investigation. HOA notice. I laughed so hard I nearly fell into the water. She'd crossed the line. I took photos, sent them to the county office, then forwarded them to Chris. That night I filed an official harassment claim with the Sheriff's Department, attaching our growing archive, 43 pages of evidence. Janice thought she was laying traps, but she didn't know I was already standing behind her, with the spotlight ready to flip on. 2 days later, a letter from the sheriff's office was hand-delivered to Janice Hartman's door. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a warning. It was a formal notice of inquiry, an official start to an investigation into harassment, false reporting, and attempted property intimidation. I didn't see her read it, but I saw her reaction. That afternoon from my porch, I watched her on her patio pacing in circles, phone to her ear, shouting at someone. Her hands moved with sharp, panicked gestures. Her little white dog yapped at her feet, confused by her sudden chaos. She disappeared inside and slammed the sliding glass door behind her. The neighborhood noticed. By sunset, Regina texted me, "She's gone full bunker mode. Covered her security cams with plastic. HOA Facebook group is now members only. Guess who's no longer a member?" Tom sent a photo of a fresh notice taped to his mailbox. Friendly reminder, refrain from engaging with outside agitators who threaten community harmony. It wasn't signed, but the font screamed Janice. Then finally came the meeting. It was supposed to be a routine HOA gathering in the clubhouse. Budget updates, event planning, nothing major. But word had spread that the lake incident would be addressed. Chairs filled fast. I arrived early, clean-shaven, button-down shirt, folder in hand. Regina and Tom flanked me like witnesses at a hearing. Janice arrived 10 minutes late, flustered, papers in one arm, laptop in the other. She didn't look at me, not once. The first half hour was standard noise. Sprinkler schedules, noise complaints. Then came item 6, lake boundary disputes. Janice cleared her throat, opened her laptop, and tried to smile. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that Silver Pines is a community built on values, safety, consistency, and trust. Recently, some confusion has arisen over who is and isn't permitted in shared natural areas. She didn't say my name, but she didn't have to. There have been multiple complaints filed, she continued, and we are currently exploring legal clarification regarding shoreline access. I stood. Pardon the interruption, but may I speak? The room shifted. Eyes turned. Janice's smile faltered. "This isn't a resident Q&A, she began, but Tom interrupted. "I'd like to hear him out," Regina chimed in. Me too. A murmur rippled. Heads nodded. Janice hesitated, then gave a tight nod. Fine. 3 minutes. I stepped forward and placed my folder on the table. I'm John Mayer. I own parcel number 178, including full eastern lakefront, according to county records. I've never entered Silver Pines property without cause. Every accusation made against me has been documented, and all false. What concerns me is not the misunderstanding. It's the pattern. I opened the folder and began distributing copies. This is a summary of 9/11 calls, letters, surveillance, drone activity, and unauthorized postings, all originating from your HOA vice chair. Janice's face flushed a sharp, uneven red. This is harassment, she snapped. Fabricated. No, it's notarized, I replied calmly. Page 8 includes a letter from the county zoning office confirming she attempted to refile my property boundaries. Twice. Now the room was still. Page 12 is a letter from the sheriff's office. An inquiry is underway. Any further escalation will be handled legally. Someone in the back muttered, "Whoa." I let the silence hang. Then finally, I don't want conflict. I want peace. I want to swim in my lake, walk my land, and enjoy my retirement. But if I'm forced to fight, I will. With facts, not flags. Regina clapped once, then Tom, then others followed. Janice stood frozen, lips trembling. This is slander, she said weakly. No, I said. It's evidence. And I suggest your next move be a quiet one. The meeting adjourned without another word from her. But later that night, she left a note on my mailbox. No threats, no blame. Just 2 words scribbled in neat, shaking handwriting. You win. I didn't touch the note for a long time. Just stood there, arms crossed, the porch light buzzing faintly above me, reading those 2 words again and again. You win. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't remorse. It was surrender, typed in ink and pride swallowed hard. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The next morning, something even more surprising happened. A knock at my door. Not the firm, practiced rap of law enforcement or the impatient pound of HOA paper pushers. A light knock. Uncertain. I opened it to find Margaret Liu, one of the quietest residents in Silver Pines. Retired music teacher. She lived 3 houses down from Janice, always polite, always distant. She held a Tupperware container and looked like she'd rehearsed a speech she forgot the second I opened the door. I brought banana bread, she blurted, and I wanted to say I'm sorry. I stepped aside. She sat at my table sipping coffee, picking at the corner of the container. I should have said something earlier, she confessed. We all should have. But she, Janice, she made everyone afraid. Of fines, of gossip, of being targeted. I nodded. You weren't the only one. She looked up at me. But you didn't flinch. I smiled softly. Oh, I flinched. I just didn't do it in public. She laughed, a small, grateful sound. By the end of the week, 6 more people had stopped by. Some brought food, some brought apologies. One man, Alan, even offered to help me repaint the dock. The shift had begun. The Facebook group unlocked again. Janice didn't post. She didn't show up to the next HOA meeting. Word was she'd stepped down for health reasons, but no one believed it. Chris stopped by that weekend, off duty and in good spirits. She finally dropped the drone registration, he said, and the sheriff's office closed the inquiry with a warning on file. What about the report? Chris grinned. Still archived, still admissible. We clinked coffee mugs instead of beers. It felt more fitting somehow. That afternoon, I went down to the lake. No flags, no cameras, no shouting from the hill. Just sun, wind, and water. I stepped off the dock and dove in. For the first time since this whole thing began, I swam with no tension in my shoulders, no half-turned glances back toward the trees. Just peace. And when I surfaced, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. A child's drawing, pinned to my dock post, fluttering in the breeze. A crayon lake, a man swimming, a little arrow labeled, Mr. John's Lake. I looked up. On the hill above the HOA line, a little girl waved shyly. Her mother stood behind her, nodding. I waved back. That was the moment I knew the story was over. Janice had ruled with fear, with noise, with bureaucracy, but she forgot the most important thing about small towns, about communities, about people. They always come back to truth. So here's mine. If someone tries to steal your space, your dignity, with threats and rules and fear, stand your ground, swim your lake, and always, always keep the receipts.